In 1930, a man named Richard Byrd volunteered to spend an entire winter, alone, in Antarctica. On purpose. For science. Within months, he was hallucinating, talking to his stove, and writing love letters to the concept of other people. And yet, today, you can be surrounded by 8 billion humans, hold a device connected to literally all of them, and still feel more alone than a guy in Antarctica talking to kitchen appliances. How did we get here? Buckle up. This is the history of loneliness. And don't worry, you're watching it with me. So, let's rewind about 300,000 years. You're a prehistoric human. Your entire social network is about 40 people, and your idea of content is a rock that looks vaguely like another rock. Here's the thing. Back then, loneliness wasn't a feeling. It was a death sentence. Get separated from your tribe? Congratulations. You are now a walking charcuterie board for saber-toothed cats. Scientists think that's actually why loneliness hurts. It's an evolutionary alarm system. Hunger says find food. Thirst says find water. Loneliness says find your people, you idiot, before something with fangs finds you first. So the next time you feel lonely on a Friday night, remember, that's not weakness. That's a 300,000-year-old smoke detector going off in your brain. It's just a little dramatic now that the saber-toothed cats are gone. Prehistoric humans basically solved loneliness by never being alone. Ever. You slept in a pile, you hunted in a group, you went to the bathroom with an audience. Privacy hadn't been invented yet. Neither had pants. Priorities. Fast forward to ancient Greece. Humans have invented cities, wine, and, most importantly, free time, which means they've also invented overthinking. Enter Aristotle. The man famously said humans are social animals, and that anyone who lives alone is either a beast or a god. No pressure. You're either divine or you're a raccoon. Choose. For the Greeks, being cut off from your community, your polis, was one of the worst punishments imaginable. Exile was considered a fate close to death. Socrates was literally offered exile instead of execution, and he chose the hemlock. That's how much ancient people hated the idea of eating lunch alone. But then there's Epicurus, history's most misunderstood guy. Everyone thinks Epicurean means fancy cheese and hedonism. In reality, Epicurus said the greatest pleasure in life was friendship. He literally bought a house, called it The Garden, and moved all his friends in. That's right, the ancient world's answer to loneliness was a philosophy commune with roommates. It's giving group house, but with more togas and fewer passive-aggressive fridge notes. Key takeaway? The ancients didn't really have a word for our modern loneliness. Being alone, solitude, existed. But the chronic ache of feeling disconnected? That concept was still loading. Now here's where it gets weird. Around the 3rd century, some Christians looked at loneliness, the thing every human had avoided for 300,000 years, and said, what if we did that on purpose? For God. Meet the Desert Fathers, monks who marched into the Egyptian desert to live completely alone because they believed solitude brought them closer to the divine. The most famous? Simeon Stylites. This absolute legend lived on top of a pillar for 37 years. 37 years on a pole. And here's the funny part. It backfired spectacularly. He became so famous that crowds gathered around his pillar every day just to watch him. He tried to escape humanity and accidentally invented live streaming. But the monks gave us something important, the idea that being alone could be meaningful. Solitude became spiritual, productive even. Alone with God? Great. Alone? Still terrifying. Medieval punishment for the worst crimes? Banishment. Because for 1,000 more years, being cut off from the village still meant you were basically done. No village, no bread, no barn-raising buddies, no one to leech you when you got sick, which, medically speaking, was probably a win. But still. Okay, the year is 1800-ish. Factories exist now, and everything smells like coal. Here's the historical plot twist. The word loneliness, in the way we use it today, that emotional ache, barely existed before 1800. Historians like Fay-bound Alberti have shown that loneliness just meant being one, alone, neutral, like a fact. Then the modern world happened, and suddenly the word got feelings. Why? Because millions of people left villages, where everyone knew you, your family, your cow, and your cow's opinions, and moved to giant industrial cities where nobody knew anybody. Imagine it. You grew up in a village of 200 people. Now you live in London with 1 million strangers, work 14 hours in a factory, and your closest relationship is with a loom. Her name is Brenda. She's the only one who understands you. This is when loneliness became a crowd phenomenon. Alone in a village? You're a hermit. Alone in a city of millions? You're a tragedy. Poets noticed. Dickens noticed. Everyone started writing sad novels about isolated people in foggy cities. The Victorians basically invented the staring out a rainy window aesthetic. You're welcome, Tumblr. Post-World War II, America decides the solution to everything is the suburbs. Identical houses, big lawns, fences, so many fences. The suburb was designed for privacy, which sounds great until you realize privacy is just loneliness with better marketing. Then television arrives, and humans everywhere make a historic trade. We swap the town square for a glowing box. Why talk to your neighbor Gary when you could watch fictional people be friends at you? Sitcom characters became our new community. We knew the Friends cast better than our actual friends, which is ironic because the show is literally called Friends. By the 1990s, sociologist Robert Putnam wrote a famous book called Bowling Alone, pointing out that Americans had stopped joining things. Clubs, leagues, churches, unions, membership everywhere collapsed. People were still bowling, just alone, which is objectively the saddest sentence in sociology. And in 1959, psychiatrist Frieda Fromm-Reichmann wrote one of the first serious papers on loneliness, calling it one of the most painful and most avoided topics in psychiatry. Even therapists didn't want to talk about it. That's like firefighters refusing to discuss fire. And then, the internet. Finally, a machine that connects every human on Earth. Loneliness is solved, baby. It was not solved, baby. Welcome to the great social media paradox. We are the most connected generation in human history, and studies keep finding that heavy social media use correlates with feeling more lonely, not less. Because here's the trick. Your brain's 300,000-year-old loneliness alarm, it doesn't count likes. It counts presence, eye contact, shared meals, someone helping you move a couch. A like is to friendship what a picture of water is to being thirsty. Looks right, does nothing. We replaced hanging out with scrolling. We replaces calling with typing, "We should hang out soon," the internationally recognizing code for, "We will never hang out." Then 2020 hit, and a global pandemic forced the entire planet into the world's largest loneliness experiment. Overnight, everyone got a taste of what hermits, exiles, and Antarctic explorers had been telling us for centuries. Humans do not do well alone. People were greeting their delivery drivers like returning war heroes. We baked so much bread. So much bread. Which brings us to now. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon Number officially declared loneliness a public health epidemic, comparing its health impact to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. The UK appointed a literal minister for loneliness in 2018. Japan followed in 2021. Loneliness now has government departments. It's doing better in its career than most of us. In the future, AI companions, virtual friends, chatbot girlfriends, we're speedrunning the plot of every sci-fi movie that ends badly. Will digital friends fix loneliness or just make it quieter? Honestly, nobody knows yet. We're the experiment. But here's the hopeful part. History shows loneliness isn't some personal failure. It's a signal, and it's shaped by how we build our world. Villages, gardens, bowling leagues, town squares. Every era that beat loneliness did it the same way, on purpose. Connection has never been automatic. It's always been built.